All right, everybody. I am really excited for us to get going. If you don't know, I'm Victoria. I own Spiral, and I have the lucky opportunity to host these two fantastic poets. First up, we have Effy Winter, who has been in the Spiral sphere and the Philly sphere for a while. And I am so excited to have you back at another reading. So thank you for joining us. Effy is an American poet and scholar specializing in literary studies with a concentration on the life and work of German writer Asia Wellville. Am I saying that right? I meant to look that up.
Say it again.
How do I say the German writer that you
Oh,
focus
Ossea Wevel.
on?
Sorry.
Asia Wellville. Thank you. I realized I didn't know. Now I know. A nominee for the 2018 Pushcart Prize, her poetry has appeared in numerous publications, including Vulnerary, I love them, Rusted Moth, and Resurrection Magazine. She is currently pursuing her academic work in England, where she divides her time between West Yorkshire and London. And you can learn more on her website. And I'm going to drop that in the chat for you. But in the meantime, Effy, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited I'm honored to be here for Hamant's book launch. He is the star of our show tonight, and can't wait to hear his reading. But I'm going to start us off tonight. The poems I'm going to read tonight are from my forthcoming collection, Ossea, a book inspired by the relationship between German writer Ossea Wevel and poet Ted Hughes. Hughes was the husband of poet Sylvia Plath, and his affair with Ossea Wevel began in the summer of 1962 after their fated meeting in London. Despite the trials their relationship endured after Plath's death, they remained involved in a turbulent love affair until their final quarrel in 1969, which resulted in Ossea's suicide. My poems, while written in a confessional style and deeply personal, are intended to give Ossea a voice and to tell this tragic love story through poetic narrative. So the first poem I have for you tonight is called Lovely is the World. Lovely is the world. I do not recognize myself in love. I am only my mouth. I am only mouth in love. Lovely is the world. Lilies. Breathless, a marriage of healing, winded lilies. I am a light swaying in your arms. Winded love, dream of my life, brimming with beauty. Always stay in love. Love my body like the sea. Lilies are mending by moonlight. Ivory, a true face you cover with flowers. Beautiful is my temper after rain. This next poem is titled In Love. In love. How does one say to love in the language of water? Yehuda Amakai, you also were so tired, translated by Ossea Gutman Wevel. My dear one to him. In love, the body is a perfumed sea, heaving salt, jasmine, rain. The night I was in love, lilies, waves healing, breaking, a light 7 years between us, loving eyes, blue of dreaming, blue like snowfields. The night I was in love, beautiful, this was my flowering. I lie on your body, bright with nausea, bringing peace through tears, a little breath after love. This poem is titled Lilies to Dreamers, after Ted Hughes' poem Dreamers about Ossea Wevel. We collided to kiss. I then flared up with enormous love. Ossea Wevel, June 1963. You hold my life like rain, fragrant lunacies, heavenly blue of iris gardens. Where have you banished me to this time? Have you forgotten me? If the sickness doesn't go, I'll go to Highbury and take the pills there. The sea's light breaks, waves of water lilies. I feel so full of love for you at your sweet best. I am born again as we kiss. Lovely is the world, a vision when you and I are in love. This next poem I wrote for Christian Keeler. It is titled Where the Sea Ends. Where the sea ends. A breath of jasmine. With grace, your body reaches, blind as flowers, born of many seas. Enter into me. I told you I made love only in rain. I cried to you of my fate, your fate, a lovely blue shadow, God's veiled face, your beauty shifting wind and water. I cried to you of my body breaking, your body hopeless, where the sea ends. This next poem is titled Azaleas. Azaleas. There, a dream. The azured harebell planted beside a cairn, azaleas in May, lily in their shadow, painting upon the earth its dawning garden. Your waltzing flora, clipped wings of a rose finch, alone in their fragrant beds. Dream of my life. I'm writing to your big hands, to the lovely inside of your wrists, to your best tempered eyes. Ossia, March 1968. Blind lilies, blind hope for the ending, the beauty age dream. I will disappear with God when you are gone. Dream of my life, carry me to our moonlight. Bend with the salt of the seas as I do. Dream of my life, we are hopeless. I am hopeless. In love, he leaves lilies, cold and final. For the last time, we float above gardens with the shallows of the earth. I kiss your mouth. This next poem, I Did So Love You, My Dearest Father, references Ossia suicide note to her father, written in March 1969. This poem is dedicated to my father, Richard, who is here tonight. I did so love you, my dearest father. And don't grieve for me. Believe me, I have done the right thing. It is necessary to know when there is no more life to live. Ossia, March 1969. I did so love you, my dearest father, with all of my life, with all of my waters, brimming the opal tear, unveiling oceans, a time of light. Your true loving eyes, iris blue, the first star, stirring deeper miracles in my heart. Born a time of wind and rain, celestial body, a breath to my sea, a long way from your heart. Father, my past protector, I miss you very much. Don't grieve for me. My winter arrives now. My love to you, forever and ever, a time to rest. This next poem is called Her Heavy Century. Her Heavy Century. And what I shall never in the world return to, I am to love forever. Yehuda Amichai, The Place Where I Have Not Been, translated by Ossia Gutman-Wevel. More than I love the breath we keep, I love the breath of the tired wind. A heavy century of white into stained snow white, your face, the face of memory, bringing you back to me. Before memory, breath, life, your hands, morning light upon our 7th year, grace in your wake, a gift, the absolute hope of a love. We had once dreamt one another, sleepless as water, as angels returning to locked rooms. My final poem, Romantic Inevitability, is a confessional and cento piece about the day of Asia's cremation. Specifically, it's a premonition of Asia's, which appears in the middle of my book as her own fate begins to slowly reveal itself to her. The title for this piece comes from a letter written by an acquaintance of Asia who wrote to another. Romantic inevitability, the black destiny to be lived out. She accepted it, penance and identity all in one. Romantic inevitability. Her eyes were 7 years of cries. Ted Hughes. Hold my life, take away my days. Possession, earthly love alone, and other light. Inexplicable miracle of light, miracle that has not yet healed in me. You magically have dispossessed me. A bright spirit, 2 loving eyes, went away weeping at our memory, the song of wind, the song of songs. Open up again, open out to me as you used to, my love. These ashes had a dream. What are we in the language of earth among the falling heavens? The holy years, our body's imprint burning out in air. Smoke mixed itself with birds' wings. Disasters rise into rain, a cloud of fire. There, my sunless, wailing into the death sky, the sun itself silenced. We lie down, you hold me so, and we fly. So those are my poems from Asia. I wanted to leave you all with a reading from a letter to Ted Hughes from Asia Wevel. It was written in April of 1968, about a year before her death. So I'm just going to read this to you really quickly. To Ted Hughes, Thursday, April 4th, 1968. Please, God, send Ted a happy year. Send him the year he has waited for so long. And may he have more money than he absolutely needs so that he won't ever again worry about ending up without any. And please, God, make him feel truly well and in full control of his body. And make his spirit fiery and splendid as ever, if you can spare it, God, more so than ever. And please heal all his bruises and his many wounds. Please make him utterly whole again, because he is one of your best creatures. And please make him forget our awful tribulations of the last year, and please restore him his heart wholly. And please ask him to forgive me my pride and its consequences. Look after him, God, because he is rare and marvelous, and you spent so much love in creating him. And if it's the last thing I ever ask you, God, send him back to me, loving and sweet, as he was before our sorrows. And that is all I have for you guys tonight. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of this new work with all of you.
Thank you so much. Those were fantastic, and it was so wonderful to hear some of your new work. I loved those. No surprise that I love your new work too, but fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love the scholarly aspect too of what you do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It all comes together so well. Thank you again, Effy.
Of course.
All right, and now it is the poet of the hour. Are we ready to go? We're going to dive into, so we're dealing with some heavy themes again as well, a little bit of different language, a little bit more occultism, esoterica, so buckle in, it's time. Hamant Singh is a Singaporean writer who is influenced by horror, different cultures, and the occult. In 2022, he completed his first collection of poems titled The Sibyl. His work has been published in Illumin, a quarterly digest for science fiction, fantasy, and poetry, and he's been nominated for the 2022 Rhysling Award by the Science Fiction Poetry Association. Hamant currently resides in the mountains of Chiapas. Am I saying that right? Mexico. I want to see pictures because it sounds beautiful. Anyway, sorry, where he enjoys gardening, reading, and making music. He is currently working on a second book featuring more international writers, and you can learn more on his website, which I am dropping in the chat. But in the meantime, here we go.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yep. All right, perfect. Hi. So thank you for that introduction, Victoria, and that was lovely, Effie. I really enjoyed it, all of it. Looking forward to ASEA coming out.
Thank you
So
so much.
absolutely. This is the Sibyl. I don't know if you can see it very well. Zoom. The Sibyl is something that took about 9 years to write, in all. It's my first book, my first publication, and it's split into three sections. So I'm going to read from each of the sections. The first section is called Conception, and it's about things that have come before us, before civilization, before society. And the middle bit is called the festering. The festering revolves around events in my life and my interpretation of that, my advancement in magic, if you like to call it that, and things like that. And the last section is chaos. Chaos is a section about things that are eternal and that will continue to live on long after we're gone. So each section comes with its own artwork, and I had the artwork made by different artists from Ireland, from Indonesia, and from Singapore. And I'm gonna drop a couple off at Victoria's place, the Spiral Bookcase. So feel free to grab a copy from that bookstore. So this is the first one I'm reading today is Inseparable. Inseparable was the poem that was nominated for the Rhysling Award last year, which it's just an honor to be nominated, really. But this is an imagined story about twins. And in this imagined story, one twin dies and another doesn't. Enjoy. Inseparable. You were my better half, and I yours. For months, we grew together, 20 little fingers and 20 tiny toes. Our heartbeats tuned to mother's metronome until someone forgot to wind your clock. We were inseparable, not literally, thankfully. I'd hate to drag your remnants around with me for the rest of my life. But I think I already do. I first saw you in mirrors and then everywhere else. In my classroom, sat right next to me, obviously, inseparable. Then I stopped seeing you. I felt you. Your wicked ghost never let me go. A cursed shadow that went everywhere I did. Everyone laughed at me, the person with the imaginary friend, no less at 10. All my dates a menage à trois. She was the third wheel and didn't even know it. You were a little secret, ours. No one could even begin to fathom the bond that we share. A link stronger than any oath or vow. Shackles on my shoulder, fetters on my feet. You will never leave, even though you did. Nor do I want you disconnected, even though you are. You are my better half, and I yours. We will always be. That was Inseparable. The second one I would like to read is something called The Spectre. Uh, I like this one very much. It's about death. The Spectre. It came from beyond and sailed through an open window, past my distracted gaze, into my world, past my oblivious haze, parading death in its trail of brown, bumping into everything as if alien to this world. Finding bearings seemed to be a most trying task, until at last it rested next to me. Startled at first, but I saw it meant no harm. It was lost and drifted around till it found the one it was searching for. Who might you be, or might have been? Why have you come? Are you to sit next to me, to follow me around like a shadow? At times it did breathe in my ear as it roamed unstable, like a drunk man or meandering river, unintelligible Enochian whispers, melodies of maladies, dirges of the dead. My nightly companion, till I grew grey and frail, my touch like its wings, crumbling with every slight movement, my eyesight like small cracks in rocks. I stopped hearing your tale. A sound slowly became a stranger to me. You, spectre, were there all along, hovering over me, a shadow that grew forceful as I turned frail. I don't see you anymore, as lonely as I am. I have learned to sail, as you do, over vast oceans, through open windows, parading death with my trail of brown. Thank you. So those first two was from the first section, and this is the last one from the first section, called "Of Debts and Chains." A cord that binds from formation may strangle if you're lucky, otherwise it will suffocate. For you remain tethered, even though it may be severed. A cord that binds and masks discord, arms embrace till there is no more breathing space. It will suffocate, a suck at a teat, a treat, a trap. Manacles like tentacles, they surround, they suck and refuse to release. They suck, but not the way I suck. Gyves, aye, that's what they are, gyves. Deceit, receipts of debts I cannot repay. Slavery that existed since Cain. A slave shackled by your love. If you could only see me, if you could only see debts that go beyond the grave, indebted, undoubtedly indebted. And then there is a great serpent from whence we all came. Powers that go beyond the grave. In you I suffocate and die. In you I breathe and thrive. So the next one is called Online, and it's the first poem in the second section. And this, I have a history of being lied to a lot. I don't know why. It's my luck, I suppose. But this one's a bit of a fun one. A lot of like wordplay, and hope you enjoy it. Online. It's called Online. You lie about where you lie and who you lie with, to him with whom you lie. Where lying becomes commonplace. Everywhere you lie, every day you lie, everyday lies. And you continue to lie, and lie, and lie, and lie, and lie. They become nameless, your lies. When I first realized your lies, I wanted to lie, and told myself it was just me, overthinking, overanalyzing, and wondering too much. But that is the premise of a lie. wonder. A lie is born out of wonder, born out of fantasy, and then you lie and lie and lie and lie. Then you wake from a dream and the fantasy comes to an end, only to find the verity that lies next to you, verily. The truth is your bedfellow, with whom you lie with and whom you lie to. The truth lies next to you. And then you lie and lie until you lie next to truth and lie no more. Bit of a tongue twister, even to read, right, sister? um, I'm gonna read one more from this section before we move on. This one's called Sunset. The sun made its way down, but there was no warmth. My hands wrung as they held theirs. Time passed slowly, excruciating moments as it edged towards the horizon, towards a predetermined, doomed destiny. Why watch the sun go down when you know where it goes? For pictures? For memories that live on long past the darkness? To capture the light that blinds the eyes, helplessly clinging to sorrow and woe. And what do we need but sun and warmth? What do we need but sun and warmth? Trying to cage wild memories that don't want to be held. Whispers dissolving in the wind, fancies across the glistening sand. The anguish that comes from remembering, but yet there is no warmth. There is none. As the sun starts to burn the horizon, a portal in time is opened. A rip in the eternal, meaningless speck, infinitesimal, which matters none, yet it is all. The journey slowly comes to a close, but where was the warmth? All along, where was the warmth? Winds blow cold, and she is not set. The approaching end mocks the futile experience. The sand burns orange, a flame soon extinguished. She fights to light the sky, but time has other ideas to prolong suffering. The world continues to pass, to smile, to laugh, to run, while there is no warmth. There never was. The sea consumes the burning flame, a god reduced to mere rays. So all that remain are ember memories, smoldering moments, and there is no warmth, and there never shall be. I'm gonna move to the last section here. This poem's called Her, and it's actually my favorite from the collection, and I've been reading it all the shows. So uh, I hope you like this. This is about infinity and chaos and the sea and a woman's body all rolled into one. Her ravishing roar silenced by her whispering ebb, a repetitious humdrum that was far from the mundane, a piercing pulchritude that mocked time. I am swollen with deafening infinity. The radiant sun spares no one, as she scattered her rays. The sparkles danced off waves. Ain lay before me, and it was everything. Powerless to shift my stare, while the glistening gripped my soul. The salty scent that filled my being, the burn of the sting from the salt, intoxicated. She had not touched me, but she had, and left me drunk as my empty shell washed ashore. Inebriated, dizzy, ecstatic where I lay. nor did I want to be elsewhere. For what more would I need to seek? The terrific, the terrifying, her majesty, her magnificence. Her wrath churned the waters. I stood, rooted, awestruck, as her advances threatened on the horizon. Take me, I am yours to devour. The waves rise and tower above me. I am helplessly consumed by the immense, as I am willingly swallowed by her. We're gonna do one last one. A lot of the poetry that I write has to do with the sublime, but it's sort of the darker side of the sublime. So this is one of them. This is the last poem in the book. It's called Exit, and it's about black hole. Exit. The great perforation in the firmament, nay, the revered rip. O mighty cavern, what mysteries lie beyond you? We try and fail to see through you, for we cannot approach your majesty. A God which we truly know exists in the glorious omnipotence. A stitch in time saves none, a forceful tear in the fabric of reality, in open and utter defiance of space and time, the devourer of light. O illustrious void, swallowing the cosmos one star at a time. Into your magnificent unknown, the gaping mouth of the dragon. We know the elder gods, primordial ones, still exist unseen. The black matter that lurks in corners and crevices, that surround the unforgiving abyss, for naught can resist nothingness. The trumpets blow, oh how they blow, all sonorous seven, the clamorous piercing as the spiral glows, all life, all beings sucked into that deafening dissonance. O thundering noise, all future devoured by that ear-splitting eternity, evermore. As we all surrender to the orifice, there is a separation of consciousness, and nevermore ensues, an unknowable and unthinkable, the unimagined, witnessing a fade to blank, and then seeing the unseen, witnessing the end. So thank you very much. I've also got t-shirts, if you want to reach out to me off the tour, yeah.
Gotta get that merch.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had two designs made for the tour, and yeah, they got all the dates on the back and stuff, and like all the art is custom made. So like I mean, they were made by other people because I can't draw, but like they were made from my brain is what. So, thank you for having me, and I hope you all enjoyed that.
Those were amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Thank you, Victoria.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Thank you.
I really loved Her, I think it was called, the one that's called The CEO Woman and Chaos, because you made it work on every single level. And I knew that if I went through and read it, like it would work on all three levels.
I think that was my favorite too, actually. Yeah. I loved that poem.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. 15 shows, and every time I tell someone that's my favorite poem, they all like something else. This is the first time, like, yeah, everyone loves Inseparable, and I mean, I like it, and it's one of the more popular ones, but writing Her was very special to me. And I think like it's strange, Effie, because I find that in a lot of your poetry, you mention a lot of water. So there's a lot of mention of rain and the sea, which is really strange because I write a lot about the sea as well.
Yeah, that is interesting. I feel like, you know, water is such a key part of the water is an archetype of emotion, is what I'm trying to say. So I think that, having these like swells of emotion in us, for me, it just translates as different forms of water, whether it be the ocean, or the rain, or so maybe you can relate to that, Hamant.
Yeah, I tend to write more about the ocean and the sea as symbols of infinity. I mean, I grew up in Singapore and that's an island. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But there's something about when I'm in the sea, there's something infinite about it. It is the sublime. It literally is the sublime. But I've written about the sublime quite differently than say Shelley. I'm a huge Shelley fan. Um, her, well, yeah, and I tried to write about the sublime because Shelley would write about the sublime as, sorry, in admiration or fear even at times. But I'm writing about the sublime. I'm writing about surrendering to the sublime because the only way to truly become one with the sublime is to get rid of your ego. And once your ego is gone, the fear is gone, the reverence is gone, the amazement is gone, and then you just get swallowed into the abyss or the black hole or the. I've got another one about eclipses as another form of the sublime and how different cultures view that as well. So that was what this is. A lot of it was about.
Both of your work sort of has that like journey towards some sort of a surrender, which is fascinating in very different ways. But
Absolutely, yeah. I can definitely relate to a lot of your writings, Hamant, in the sense that so much of my work and this book in particular has to do with the idea of fate, things being fated. And I talked a little bit in that last poem about this concept, romantic inevitability, like when she says the black destiny to be lived out. It's just I think it's really interesting how both of our writings, kind of follow this surrender sort of feeling to a more spiritual power, if you will.
Right, something that seems more predestined. Uh, I think a lot of it has, again, going back to the ego and the shedding of the ego, we like to think that we're in control of things, but
Yeah.
I guess we are to an extent, but like to what extent, truly? Um, every plan that we've made in life never has quite gone like 100% according to what we initially wanted, the way we wanted it to go. So if we can acknowledge, if we can acknowledge sort of the instability and the chaotic nature of the future, then we're able to surrender to it. And it's kind of like struggling against the current of a river or just kind of going
Floating.
along with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of stop thrashing with the water and just kind of just sit with the current and see where it takes you, as opposed to trying to fight the current. To what end really is the question. Something like that.
Yeah, just to go on a little bit about what you said, I'm actually studying traditional Hellenistic astrology, and the core part of the study is this idea that you can become what I think an old astrologer said this, but become a soldier of fate, meaning, like you said, not struggling against the water, but learning to flow with it. And in the concept of understanding your fate or your life through these astrological placements and the studies of celestial bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that
I would say I found your work. I use the word intriguing because Effy will tell you, as much left-brained as she is, I am very right-brained, and so
you mean the opposite,
or the whatever. But to be able to take those concepts and weave them in, such that you're tying together fate, things that are very kind of faith-based, that you have to buy into it, versus tangible, being able to see it and feel it and prove it, and then mixing that in with science and scientific concepts like time and space, and I just found it really interesting and intriguing. So I just wanted to say that and say, you know, congratulations. I think it's really interesting stuff.
Thank you, Rick. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It really is an amazing book. I can't wait to get a copy myself and
Thank you.
dive through it. It's I feel like it's one of those books that, you know, you'll sit with for such a long time and you know, just keep going over and over and finding new secrets and meanings in each poem, which is just wonderful. I really want to dive back into her though.
Yeah.
And go through some of those lines again. I don't know if we're to the point where we're ready to do Q&A. What do you think, Victoria? I had a question regarding that.
Shoot.
I just wanted to know, like, where did that start? Where were the origins of that poem? I know that's a big question, but
Well, before you start the answer to that, if you guys don't mind, this is a little above my pay grade, if you will. So I will let you continue to discuss, and thank you for inviting me. I truly enjoyed this, and Effy, great job. And enjoy. I look forward to seeing some of your writing down the road, Hamant. And
Thanks, Rick.
Victoria,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for setting
Thank
this
you.
up. Take care.
Thanks for coming.
Sorry.
That's all about her. We want to know all about her.
Yeah, her.
We love that poem. Tell us everything.
Wow. Okay, so again, it's about the sea is a metaphor in the poem for the infinity, right? And I was looking at a woman's body, and I kind of saw the similarities between a woman's body and the ocean being a metaphor for infinity. Yeah, I mean, like you guys see how it's going, and um, the interaction with the sun as well, the way the sun interacts with the sea, and it's kind of like how, you know, the rays of the sun reflect off the waves, the way they same way they do it on a woman's hair, for example. Um, and it's the idea of femininity, it's the idea of the infinite. Um, we are going through a wave of the female right now. I mean, if you look in terms of epochs or eras or eons or whatever you want to call it. You know, first you had the patriarchal, you know, the father. If you look at the father, and then you had the whole rebellious kind of thing with the hippies and all that with the son. That's the son, and then now it's the feminine. Which is why Lilith is such a prominent figure these days. Everyone, you know, like Lilith is in so many conversations in the occult or otherwise. So yeah, so I was looking at a sleeping woman. Yeah, and I was just admiring her and her body and the infinity of it, and then made those connections. And I wrote the bulk of it that same night. It's a lot of my poems are are in adoration, sorry. So they're kind of like hymns, I suppose, in a
Yeah.
way, to chaos, to theosophy, to the occult, and things like that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's such a great concept, and I can absolutely relate to, you know, being inspired by the human form and obviously by love and adoration for another person. So
Mhm. Yeah, I think poetry. I was asked this once long ago. Does your life influence your poetry or the other way around? And I think ever since I began writing, I think I suppose I've always looked at life quite poetically. You know, you see the ironies everywhere, really.
yeah,
But I think after you begin to write, it becomes you start to practice poetry, if that makes any sense. So the way you view the world kind of changed. It kind of changed after like
yeah,
writing.
absolutely.
You agree? I think you think so, yeah.
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, It actually drives me crazy sometimes to not be able to shut off the poet brain, if you will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a poet, but I am a writer, and it's like
Yeah.
you can't turn it off, and it's annoying because sometimes you just want to walk down the street, but like that,
Right.
like you got to look at that leaf and the structure of the leaf and the dew on it for longer, and it's like I have an appointment to get to. Yeah,
Right. Just finding meaning in absolutely everything and seeing a poem in every little thing. And that's why, for me, love or being in love is really the muse for me, because it's like explosions in my brain of all these different words and phrases and just poems all over the place when I'm in that state. So yeah, just being a writer. I mean, it's definitely view the world in a different way, for sure.
I write songs, so I can definitely, I just have to like turn it off, or find something else to work on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I always keep my phone like close in case I find something I can
yeah.
write. Yeah. Yeah. Right. But I loved your guys's, everything was just sublime. And I wrote down so many like quotes that you guys had with your work. And Effy, I loved Lovely is the World, and you mentioned something about a marriage of lilies, and that just made me like a big bouquet, and like, a significant other bringing, someone flowers. And then I wrote down that you wrote Bright with Nausea. And I was wondering, is that like a reference to like having butterflies, maybe? Or
That poem in particular, In Love, it was written on a night that I was with somebody that I love, who was dealing with a lot of pain, emotional, physical. He was very sick when he was coming off this withdrawal of medications, and so the poem is my experience of being in love with a man who was in the process of healing and coming in and out of illness, both physical, mental, emotional, kind of all of it. And that night in particular was just a real heavy night, and just constant, it was just seeing somebody in constant pain and sickness. And so the poem came from that. And there are references throughout to situations that happened in NÁUSEA's life, and you can find some of that if you really dive into NÁUSEA's story. In particular, her husband David Wevel was a poet, and he wrote a lot about some of their memories, and so that piece in particular draws on some of that. But the quote that you're referring to, Bright with Nausea, was kind of just this image, that I was seeing in front of me, or it was like I was exploding with love, and I was also in a deep amount of suffering, seeing the person that I love being in such pain. So that's really what that's about. So it was quite literal the way that I used it.
That's cool. I would have never see. I just thought maybe it's like butterflies, but yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of layers to my poems, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a deeper meaning. My goodness, and him. I'm gonna pronounce it right. Hamant.
Hamant. Hamant. It's like the Cayman Islands with an H.
Oh, okay. Hamant. Thank you. My goodness, you just had so many like descriptions of them, like symbolism. I found out it was kind of funny that you started with Inseparable, because Effy does romantic poetry, so it was kind of like a little I thought that was well crafted. But yes, I wrote down like I loved that you you started with, I can't remember what poem it was, but it was a trail of brown.
Mm-hmm.
And ended with a trail of brown, and I really like that. And then I don't know, I just felt like you had really good depictions of things. Like I wrote in the chat, receipts of debt that I cannot pay. Oh, I really like the line, lies born out of fantasy. I thought that was very philosophical. And Yeah, I
I
like
try.
that. I like that. And I don't know. Yeah, and then you referred to the black hole at the end as a revered rip, and I thought that was so cool. I'm gonna have to
Thank
use
you.
that. Yeah,
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I think with you.
The Trail of Brown is about that was from the Spectre, and the Spectre was actually a moth. Um, yeah, it was a moth. So when I was writing some of the poems, okay, so I wrote the first poem like 9 years ago, and then the rest of it was in drips and drabs. You know, you get lazy and all that. And finally, I decided to like I'm gonna sit down and do this, right? Because I also had a lot of time during the pandemic. There was nowhere to go, so it's like you're in your room. There's literally no excuse now, right? You know, so I did. And every night there would be this moth. A moth would fly in through my window and sit next to me. The same moth every night. And in several cultures, the moth is a symbol of death. But in Asian culture, specifically Singaporean culture, I suppose, when a moth flies into your home, we say it's the spirit of someone visiting, someone that you know that you knew that had gone on that's come back for a visit. Um, and then so yeah, so it begins with this moth flying in, and then I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'll write about it, right? So and then at the end of the poem, the moth kind of hangs around with me until it doesn't need to. So the moth is death, and then I die, and at the end, I become a moth parading my trail of brown,
Oh,
in the way that it did. Yeah.
yeah.
So that
Oh
was
my
the
That's
God.
incredible.
thank you.
Yeah. I just feel like we had poetry in high school that I took, and I just feel like there's just all these deeper meanings, and it's just so intriguing. So thank
Mhm.
you for
I try not to give too much background because I want
yeah.
to know what people think about my poems as they read it. But
Right.
some of them are just so influenced by personal experiences that if I didn't give you some background, you just wouldn't be able to appreciate as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can never quite know all of the author's secrets, right? Which kind of makes it even more special and more of a mystery to anybody who comes across your work.
Exactly. And perhaps that's the way it should be, you know, like that bit of mystery that people read into however they want. And
Yeah, definitely.
mhm.
So I'm
um,
very interested in how you both, in some ways, and then in some ways not so much, write confessional poetry, but in very, very different fashions. Tell me about how you are alchemizing personal experience into poetry. You talked a little bit about this already, Effie. I like being in love is your muse, but I would love to hear a little bit more because both of your poetry is so deeply personal. And like writing is always personal, but you're both willing to write about situations that you've actually gone through, which I find to be fascinating and brave, and I could never do that. So I would love to hear more about your process on that and what can go into poetry, like what is kept private, is there not a line, like, and how does it happen?
Which one do you want to start with? Me or Hamant?
go for a second.
Um, well, with me, gosh, that's such a big question. As far as a line being drawn with confessional poetry, I'd have to say that I don't really draw one because it's when I get the feeling where, oh, I don't want to like when I don't want to talk about something, it's like that's it. That's the thing you need to talk about. And so, yes, so much of my work, while it is while this book, Asya, is about Asia's relationship with Ted Hughes and the experiences she was going through as their relationship was falling apart, so much of it are layers of my story and my experiences. And it created sort of this really interesting alchemy between us. It got me very up close and personal with my muse being Asya Wevel. And I actually wrote that last poem that I read to you guys. I started writing that at her resting site where her ashes were buried in West Yorkshire at Ted Hughes's home. And so I can't imagine writing anything not confessional because it is through my understanding of my experiences and the experiences themselves that create my art. You know, that all of that emotion, for as long as I can remember, has needed to go somewhere, and poetry became my outlet for that. So yeah, I don't, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't thank God poets like you guys are willing to share. Because I'm a little
I'm glad some people want to hear it. You know, because it is, like you said, Victoria, it is really hard to share such deep, intimate moments with the public, you know. So, Hamant, what about you?
Um, I don't know. It's hard because I think, and maybe I'm wrong, Effie, but it sounds like you use poetry as a tool to sort of explore the the current situations that you're in, or the current dilemmas that you're going through. And does that sound about right? Like
I use it, it's more of just, it's the expression of the emotions that I go through upon some of these experiences. It's about getting that out. But also, I will say that there is a huge layer to my poetry that is spiritually oriented, like yours. And I am connecting to things otherworldly and outside of myself when I am writing. So I also do a lot of automatic writing and channeling when I create. So which I'm sure you can relate to.
Yeah. That middle section of my book, The Festering, is all based on personal stuff. The things that came before and after, I mean, the first and the third chapter is about general stuff, general things. A lot of it is based on the Kabbalah and interpretations of the Kabbalah. I'm not Jewish, but just that as well. But yeah, that middle section is very personal. But I kind of use the events or experiences in my life as um sort of beginning, like start points of exploration. So I'm like, okay, so this has happened. There's a poem in here called Reptile, which is interesting. Reptile was written at one go, which I've never done before. I don't think I'll ever do again. I wrote the entire thing just at once. That was it. I'm terrified of geckos, like little geckos. And and I went into the kitchen for a bottle of wine, and I stepped on a gecko and it kind of went between my toes.
Ooh.
Oh yes. And I was just, I was just in shock, and I just got the wine, I went back and I just wrote it up. So that whole thing became a metaphor of letting someone who's cold-blooded getting to intimate spots.
Oh, I love that.
Silly things like this, geckos and moths coming in sort of inspire a train of thought, because I'm like, this is not normal. A moth coming in every night and sitting next to me is not normal. This doesn't happen. And I must create something with this because there is beauty in what's been happening, or what happened in the kitchen and things like that. So, I kind of use it as a beginning point and then sort of explore other themes. And you're right, the spirituality does, spill in, every now and then. And I don't think I can help myself with that, but, there are magical references. There are, like I was saying, references to the Kabbalah and the darker side of the Kabbalah as well. And, yeah, it just seeps in because I think a lot of these older philosophies that have already been written were written from experiences that somehow don't really change. So no matter what generation you're from, you will be able to relate to those things on some level.
Right.
Which could possibly explain the references that keep coming up. I think that's what it is. Did that answer the question? Did I? Did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, you did. You're poets. I leave them open-ended. I love that because I was going to ask that next, that you both to some degree seem to do like channeling whether, whatever form it is. So that's fascinating, Effie, that you say that you do use automatic writing, because I feel like in the best way possible, I can see that in both of your works and in different ways. Like Effie, when I'm listening, particularly when I listen to you read, there's sort of this like cold otherworldliness. Like I'm thinking of like, like cold morning dew on like funeral lilies, and like, the smell of like a very chilly vanilla and spring thunderstorms and that sort of thing. And then Hamant, yours kind of has this like delicious fervor to it.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine you just like, and I know you said that you only wrote that one in one go, but I can totally just imagine you just like hunched over, just like writing it all out, just like coming through you. And that's so funny that you're like, no, I've only done that once, because I
Nah,
can see that. I can
like
totally.
I have to keep editing the work because a lot of it when it first comes out is very raw and it's not the way I want it. And because when your work is, I mean, when my work, I don't have that automatic writing thing. I can't. I just need to refine it because some of it just sounds very silly, and some of it is like, that's not the word I want, like that's not the word. Like it's close, but it's not the word I want. And then like words for me are tools, and I use the tools to express something, and you can't use a wrench to knock a nail in, for example. Well, you can, it'll work, but that's not what it's for. And then, so you see what I mean? Like sometimes some of the poems I struggle on for weeks because
Right.
there's something that's not finished. There is a gap, or
Yeah, it's not
there's
right.
yeah, it's not flowing right or something, and then
Yeah.
and you're like, why? And then sometimes it's a complete rewrite, but
Oh yeah.
more often than not, it's just edits again and again. That was Reptile was the only one I did it in one sitting. Oh my God, I can't even believe it. I just don't write like that. But it flowed, and I read it several times over. There was nothing to change. And I'm like, wow, this
Thank you,
this
kid.
this will be the one.
The last poem that I read, Romantic Inevitability, that took me a year to finish.
Oh
It
wow.
started as some automatic writing and a channeling when I was at Asia's gravesite, and it took me a year. I literally just finished that poem a week or so ago, and it just came like a flood. I was stuck on it for so long, and I was like, why isn't this, like, why can't I finish this piece? And then it just all came at once. It's weird how that works. You could spend
Yep.
months on just one poem.
I couldn't agree more. I have the same thing as well. Like when it comes, like when it rains, it pours. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, right.
and sometimes you just like, whoa, there's nothing there. And you're like, oh, I have time. Yes, from off from work or life or whatever. And I'm gonna write, right? I'm gonna write, and then you just got nothing to write about.
Right.
And then sometimes it just all comes at once. And the difficult part about it is you never know. You can never plan for when it's gonna come. Man, I thought I was the only one. I'm glad you feel the same way. I think it's strange.
Yeah, it was like when I was writing that, I worked 10 hours straight on that piece, and all of a sudden I looked at the clock and it was 3 a.m. and I'm like, I need to go to bed. I can't. But I knew that if I quit, I wouldn't get the same spark or the same momentum that was coming through. Like even on a spiritual level, things were coming to me. It was like the poem was writing itself. And I was like, if I quit now, I'm not going to finish it the way that I want to. So I went all the way through, and I think I went to bed that morning at like 7 a.m. It was just, but yeah, that's how writing poetry can be. It's just like sometimes you have to surrender to the language and let it kind of do its thing.
Yep, yep. I actually have a question for you, Effie, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. Um, I've 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 never heard of Asia until today, to be honest. And there just seems there just seem to be several parallels, even with Sylvia Plath herself.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I had a bunch of other people in mind. These lovers who just could never be.
Mhm.
Um, Johnny Cash and forget her name, but
Yeah. Who's the
yeah,
Victoria? Do you
yeah.
know who the counterpart is?
Uh,
I don't either. I can't think of her name, but I know who you're talking
Johnny,
about.
I know
yep.
you're talking about
So
too, but no,
and
that's
then Eric Clapton and Layla. Uh,
Mhm.
these sort of, and they're all artists, which is strange.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's this sort of love that just seems, it's overly passionate. So it's there, it's real, but it
Mhm.
just cannot be.
Star-crossed, essentially.
Yes, but yes, yes. I think it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys seen Forrest Gump as well. It's the same feeling, and it's very frustrating to hear these stories and watch these things unfold when you know that these two people should be together because there are a lot of feelings and it just feels right.
Right.
But fate has other ideas for them, doesn't it? And did all that figure into your writing, or like
Does all
what do
that
you think?
what? Sorry?
Did all that figure into your writing?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. That
mhm,
is at its core, that is my book. It is essentially all about how two people love each other immensely and tragedy hits and
mhm,
life happens and fate intervenes and things do not unfold the way the people involved would have hoped they would. Um, and that's really what I'm grappling with as in with my human experience and as a writer, uh, learning to live with that immense love that ultimately is just, it still exists, but it is unable to sort of live out its potential in the way that I would like. And so yeah, absolutely. I mean that whole concept of star-crossed love is, you can find that through all of my pieces. Um, I'm a big believer in fate, and so yeah, but
June Carter.
yeah, yes,
Yep.
So
yeah.
yeah, it's like hearing you talk about Asiya and her story. It just um and like the stuff to her about her, with her father
Hmm.
and all that. There's just so many parallels with Sylvia Plath herself, which is interesting
Yeah.
because you would imagine that. Well, if we look at an affair from a rational point of view, you're looking for someone else because your current lover or partner or whatever isn't
Hmm.
quite enough in some sort of department. But it sounds like Asiya was really similar to Sylvia Plath in so many ways. They were poets, and all that.
Yeah, Ted Hughes
Yeah.
actually writes about this several times. There is a poem, if you're interested in exploring this further, there's a poem called Dreamers that he
Hmm.
wrote, which appears in his last collection, Birthday Letters. And it's about, the book was written about his marriage to Sylvia Plath, and it is sort of his final expression of love to her, I think, before he died. He put that out. But the poem Dreamers is about when the affair with Asya started, and he sort of describes Asya as Sylvia's dream self. The aspects of Sylvia that she wanted to have for herself that all of a sudden came out of thin air into her life and stole her husband. And it's absolutely fascinating, that poem. But yeah, there are several instances in which he talks about Asya as some sort of dream self of Sylvia. So I find that highly intriguing. But they did have a lot of similarities for sure. And Asia's death was essentially a mirror of Sylvia Plath's.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I will fight Ted Hughes in hell, I think.
Yeah, it's a very, very tragic story. And then part of the reason why I closed out on that letter that Asia wrote to Ted was because after Sylvia's death, the only mention of her in the public uh, later on was calling her the demon mistress of Ted Hughes. And it was kind of like this whole idea that she was hugely responsible in Plath's death, and she was getting a lot of hatred for that, as did Ted Hughes. But I wanted to read that letter because that showed a part of Asya, a big part of her identity that was so fragile and so soft and so in love with Ted Hughes. And so that's why I kind of wanted to close on that, because you know, she was so much more than what the newspaper articles were writing about her for that time. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities. It's a very interesting story, kind of a rabbit hole to go down once you do.
All right, well, I think if we are all out of questions, it was wonderful. I don't want to stop anyone if they have more questions. I just looked at the time and I was like, oh, we've been talking for a while. The time went by very fast.
It did.
Yeah, this has been
Oh,
lovely.
you two are both astoundingly great, and I just want to thank you for enlightening me. And yeah, I look forward to hearing both of your guys' work in the future.
Yeah, thank you so
Elena,
much for
thank you.
coming.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria, for hosting this, and Hamant, congratulations on your book release. I'm so excited for you. This is really great work. I'm looking
Thank you
forward to
very much.
seeing, you know, what you come out with next.
It's interesting because this kind of this is my first book, and again, when it rains, it pours. I've got 4 other ideas right now in the works. One's prose. It's a story about the search for my grandfather's village. Like, we actually went in search of my grandfather's village and found it. Amazing.
Wow.
And I'm working on another collection of well, it's poetry on my end in English, and I'm working with a Mexican writer who's writing in Spanish, but it's
Ooh.
prose, and it's about inebriation, but it's, well, broader than that. So it's not just getting drunk. It's forms of getting drunk. It's jealousy, it's anger, it's an orgasm, it's all these things. And that is almost done. We're just trying to get it
Oh,
published.
wow. That's
And
exciting.
yeah, it is. And I've just begun another project, sort of compiling supernatural horror famous ghosts in Southeast Asian culture. Kind of like the vampires and werewolves, but our version of it. And
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
yeah, so all this is going on at the same time. When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, right. Well, I can't complain about that, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's
no.
good to be writing so much, and yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to us here as well, Effy. Thanks for
Thank
having us, Victoria.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Victoria, and thanks,
Okay.
Selena, for coming.
Thank you so much. I can't wait that we're gonna have so much more to read from both of you soon.
Yeah.